Hello, everybody. Welcome to Troop Talk Live. My name is Aaron. I'll be your host today. But as usual, I'm joined by somebody who's way more important than I am. Everybody say hi to Pat, my good friend and coworker. Pat is the research director for Scouting America. Pat, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to be on the show, Aaron.
Thanks so much for coming on with us today. We appreciate it. We asked Pat to be on today because the topic of today's show is literally her job. It's right up her alley. We're talking about surveys in Scouts BSA. And this is something that we have mentioned off and on, Pat, probably over the years about surveys show this, data shows this. This is what we've learned from this. And I think some people are out there maybe going, really? Is that really you guys? Yeah, we really do surveys. We're not just winging it. Pat is a professional, and so we thought it'd be a good idea to bring her on today to talk about herself a little bit. Also want to mention Pat is not just a professional. Pat's a volunteer. Pat, tell us about your volunteer experience.
Right. So I've been a volunteer ever since my children were little. So I started out as a tiger cub den leader. And then,
like so many of us, right?
Yeah, so many of us start out there. So I started out as a tiger cub den leader. I then got somebody in my den who wanted to become the wolf den leader. And so I moved into that great position of being the person that gives out all the awards. So I was the person that did advancements and went out and bought everything and put them in the baggies. And then was there behind the cub master handing him the baggies as he would do the whole presentation of the awards every time. I then moved on with my son into Scouts BSA and became a committee member, worked on getting summer camp things together, worked on making sure everybody had their medicals, did all that behind the scenes stuff in the troop that you do, and got experience with that. At the same time, I was on the district level and did district membership chair for a while for my district. And so I've done a lot of different types of things because I love scouting. And I love all the wonderful volunteers we have in scouting. The volunteers are amazing to me. So I wanted to be part of that amazing group.
Yeah. I always tell people I learned more from being a volunteer than I did as a professional here at the national office.
Yeah.
You just learn so much about how things actually work in the field, right? So it's great to have Pat with that kind of experience. During her day job, she manages data. And we're going to talk about that and the type of research that we conduct and all about that. Before we get started, Pack, I want to give a quick shout out to Rusty from Pack 84 in New Philadelphia, Ohio. Thank you for watching, Rusty. Shout out to Rob. Rob says, hi, Pat Wellen. Hi, Rob. How are you? Shout out to Douglas, who's watching from Akron, Ohio. He's the advancement chair. Very, very cool. Rob says he got his start at Tiger Den leader, as did I. Good to see Garfield here. Says, yeah, Pat Wellen, I know her. Yeah, Garfield, thank you for watching. We appreciate that. Pat, let's dive in here. When you talk about research and strategy, tell us about what types of research we can.
Yeah. So if we can have the next slide, we do a bunch of different research. So the types of research I mainly conduct are outcomes research is one area. And so that's that research where we say that we build values and character in youth, but how do we prove it? And so this makes sure that we're achieving our mission of instilling these values in Scouting and Law. So I'm going to show you some outcomes research that we've done more recently. I also have something that goes out monthly to 1/4 of our scouting population. If you have your email address correct within our scouting.org or within, my.scouting, then you will receive a survey called Voice of the Scout. You'll only get it one time per year. Please answer it when you do, because we really do use that information for a lot of things. I'm going to share with you the findings from 2023. We're still collecting 2024. I have one more quarter to go. But that's where we find out about your current experience and what's working and what's not. So if you're a unit volunteer, you'll receive one as a unit volunteer. If you're a parent, you may receive one as a parent. If you're a youth 14 plus, I'm allowed by law to go directly to you. So I go to those youth that are 14 years of age and older and ask for their ideas about what the experience is like. I also have program-specific research. These are customized research projects where they come to me and say, hey, we have some kind of thing that we want to look into. We want to know more about this subject or this topic. And we do a survey around that. I'm going to share one with you about girls. Girls were coming up on our 5 years in Scouts BSA. So that committee wanted to know a little bit more about the girl experience. So I have some things about that, but I also always want to talk to boys too, because I wanted to see if there was differences in experiences. Well, if I don't include boys in it, I can't tell you if there's differences in the girl experience and the boy experience. So I include all youth in that one. Then I also do new program and activity research and pilot tracking. So this is where, those of us here at National or out in the field come up with a great new program idea and we decide to launch it as a pilot. I track those and see if they're working or not working. And we put together success measurements from the very beginning. And if we find out through our research and through whatever those success measurements are that it's not working, it doesn't roll out. If we find out it is, then it will roll out. So we have one of those that we're going to talk about as well, Aaron.
Yeah, awesome. Again, this type of research are things that we have mentioned many times on this show and on other shows we do. We just sort of mention it casually. And Angelique, I think, had the idea that, we need to go into more detail and let folks know how we do this. I think maybe there's some skepticism out there. Do you really do research? Yeah, we actually do. And it's not just, we actually have a professional who does it. This is what, her job. There's a science to this, right, Pat? I mean, it's not just sort of willy-nilly.
Yeah. And I did this before I came to scouting. I worked for research companies that tried to figure out how to market things to you. So you'd buy. Some of my clients had tennis shoes. How do I get you to buy more tennis shoes? Mm-hmm. How do I get you to buy rice? How do I get you to buy all these things? And I was doing that. And then I saw an ad in the newspaper. I thought, I was getting kind of sick of trying to sell you things you didn't really need. And then I saw this ad in the newspaper for Boy Scouts of America needed a research person. So I started out at the lowest level research here because I thought that's something I could get behind and sell is values, these adventures. I was a Girl Scout myself. My mother was a den leader for my brother. So we had a scouting history. And so I thought this is something I could really get behind.
You're selling something that people actually do need now, right?
Yes.
Leadership, citizenship, all that good stuff like that. You broke down 4 different types of research, Pat. Let's start with the first one you meant, outcomes research. What do we mean by that?
So outcomes research, again, it's about, we say we build values and character in youth and leadership and physical fitness and all these different things that we say that we do, prove it to me. So we have a new research study out called the Scouting Edge. It's a study of ethics and character in America. We surveyed both people in scouting and people outside of scouting. So we have a nationally representative sample of adults and youth, and then we have a random sample of our scouts and alumni. So you may have gotten it if you were in one of those random samples, but it's random. So, we have a computer that picks you from amongst all of our current scouts and alumni. It was conducted last year at the end of the year, about the same time as whenever I was getting ready for it. November 29th, it actually launched. December 14th, it closed. And let's show you a little bit about what we found. We found some really great things. I'm going to show you only a few things. There's a lot more in this study, and I'll show you where to go get it in the end. So when we're comparing people in scouting with people out of scouting, we have agreement that scouting builds character. 99% of our alumni said scouting built their character, helped them build character. 95% of our current youth say that scouting is helping them build these character traits. But what I think is really cool is look at the number of people that were never in scouting that also say, both youth and adults, that say that scouting builds character. They believe our program does do this. A lot of times we don't think that other people appreciate what we have in our program. They do. Next slide. Having a positive impact on your leadership skills. Again, 96% of our alumni said that they felt that being in scouting and the things that they learned through scouting helped them be a better leader and built their leadership skills. 96% of our youth that are in today said that same thing. And look, it's in the 80% for those that have never been in scouting that think that our program does have a positive impact on leadership skills. And the percent that look at us and say, you teach youth to respect differences. 95% of our alumni said that our program helped them to respect differences in people. 90% of our current youth, scouts, say that. And again, you have the high 80% that say, yeah, we think that scouting, from the scouts we know, because we did ask them, why do you hold these views? They hold these views because they see you, they see the scouts, they see the people that they know were scouts, and they see that they have this trait. So I think those are really super positive things. If you'd like a copy of the study, it's available at scouting.org/about/research. And there you'll see all of my national outcome studies. Some of them are more current. This is our most current, but we also have a few other ones that show that the time in scouting makes a difference in the lives of youth. And I know that's why I got involved in this, is because I wanted to make a difference in not only my children's lives, but other kids' lives.
And by the way, Pat just put that link up there. Great recruiting tool, by the way. If you're interested in trying to sell Scouts to non-members in your community, why is scouting good? How do people benefit? It's all right there. And as Pat said, that was just kind of a brief glance. There's a lot more.
We have stuff on honesty.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff.
Spoiler alert: our kids are more likely to be honest and to live and to believe that that's important in their lives than kids that are not in scouting. And what parent doesn't want their child to be honest and to learn that trait?
More likely to believe in like citizenship, the importance of citizenship and things like that, I think, right, Pat?
Yes, all of those things. I just had a brief time here because we have a little bit of time and a lot of different
Exactly.
So.
Go to that link for more information. Quick shout out to DJ. DJ says he's been volunteering for the BSA for 35 plus years. Thank you, DJ. And he says, Pat, I appreciate your research experience. Thank you, DJ, for that. Appreciate that. Shout out to Bobby from Pack 81 in Kentucky. Thank you for watching. And Wolfgang, who's watching from Germany. All right, Pat, another thing that you mentioned that maybe some folks have heard of or maybe have actually experienced themselves is Voice of the Scout. You mentioned that earlier, but maybe tell us a little bit more. What is that? And then what's this thing that I hear you mention sometimes, Net Promoter Score? Tell us about that.
Okay, so Voice of the Scout is a program that we have to listen to you, to find out what your experience is and what's positive and what's not so positive in scouting. I can tell you, and some of the comments, because we do have comment sections in this, and some of the comments people write in, I know no one will ever read this.
Yes.
But guess what? We have two people on my research team, me and I have another researcher, but we read every comment you write because that's the valuable thing to us, really. I can look at everything else, but to know why you think that is the comment that tells me that. So let's go on into this. So Net Promoter Score is actually saying that the methodology behind this is it's a 0 to 10 point scale. And those that give 9s or 10s are promoters. Those that give 7, 8s are passives. And those that give 6 and below are detractors. And what that means is a promoter is a person that's going to go out and say, this is the greatest program. You've got to get your child into it. You'll never find anything better than this. A passive says, this is a good program, but they have a little but in there. And a detractor generally, depends on how far down the scale from that 6 to that 0 you are, will say more and more and more negative things and will tell me not to get my child into it at all. So what does this mean? So here's the Net Promoter Scores, a 35.8 for Cub Scout leaders. This is for volunteers. This is our current ones for volunteers. Scouts BSA leaders, 40.5%. Scouts BSA leaders, Scouts BSA youth, 14.5, and unit volunteers, 36.6%. And then you see the breakout of the volunteers. Anything from 1 to 50 is good. Because remember, it's from 100 points to negative 100 points is actually our scale on this. So anything from 1 to 50 is in the good range. Anything from 50 to 80 is in the excellent range, and anything 80 or above is world class. There's very few organizations that have that 80 or above. So Costco is one of them. The last one that I looked at, Costco is one of these that's in the 80 or above. So people love Costco. But when you look at Starbucks or you look at some of the Target, they're in the excellent range. So they're 70 or they're 50 and above. We're in the good range. We'd like to increase that. So we are looking at what you said. So how can we do better in these to get your scores up? Next slide. What I think is most interesting, though, is we also have some drivers of recommendation. So these are the things that drive a person recommending scouting. And if you see the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in these, number one thing is the most important thing that drives their recommendation for that specific group. So for Scouts BSA Youth, if you want to increase your scores in Scouts BSA Youth, scouting is really fun for me. It's the number one thing. Kids are looking for fun. They want to have a fun program. Number 2, is it makes me feel like I'm something bigger and something bigger than myself. Well, what does that mean? Aaron, what do you think that would mean?
Yeah, I think it means being a part of like a community, right? We've kind of talked before about the importance of a pack community or a troop community, right? You could use the term family if you wanted to, community, something like that, right?
Right. It also means that I go to those things where I see we're not the only unit. I go to those camporees and I see more kids.
Mm-hmm.
I go to a jamboree and I see even more kids. I go to a world event and I see even more kids. It's not only national, it's not only my community, it's national. Well, it's not only really national, it's a global movement. And so they're in something that's having a bigger impact than just their own little world. And so that's the number two thing, is them understanding that and seeing it and experiencing it. So that's why it's important to get your kids to those events where they see, to summer camp, they see more kids that are in it. They make friends, a network of friends across their community. Number three for youth is Scouting constantly reinforces worthwhile values. They're watching you as a leader and whether you are living the Scout Oath and Law, and are you reinforcing those values? That's what's the interesting thing in looking at their comments. They base this on leadership. They base it on other kids in their unit. And are they being held accountable to those values in the Scout Oath and Law? Scout meetings are good use of my time or my family's time is number four for them. And adult leaders in my troop help me be a better scout or contributor. So that's that mentorship part of you being a scoutmaster, an assistant scoutmaster, or an advancement chair in that troop, a merit badge counselor in that troop. Are you helping those kids be better scouts and better contributors? Then you can see what Scouts BSA parents and leaders. Number one is value for the money. I ask it that way, Aaron, instead of cost. I ask value for the money, because what we know is if I think something is valuable, I'm paying X number of dollars for it. Am I getting the value for my money from this? Or is it not worth what I'm paying for it? So that's why I ask it as value for the money. So you can see for parents and unit volunteers, that's the number one driver. Do they see it doing the things that they want it to do for their kids? Are they getting that value for the money? Scouting being a partner in providing positive youth programs is number two for parents. Fun is number three. Then you can see 4 is constantly reinforcing worthwhile values. 5 is making me feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself. And the 6th thing in this model is meetings are good use of our time. What's interesting to me is there's 8 things in the volunteer model, but the volunteers get a few questions that the youth and the parents don't get. And that's around what their council and district is doing. Okay, so you can see them. I feel my counselor district is very responsive to my needs, is the 7th driver in their willingness to recommend. My efforts are valued by my scouting unit also comes into this. And my council is doing everything it can to deliver quality programs to the unit. So those are the things that drive this recommendation. So we know these are the important things, that if we're going to make changes, or help make this a better experience for these different groups, we need to key in on these things. So you as a leader, if you're a leader, here's the things you need to be thinking about for the youth, for your youth program. Here's the things you need to be thinking about for parent happiness, for parent recommendation, so that they'll recommend your unit.
Yeah, not a surprise. Scouting is really fun for me. We've known that, right, Pat? Kids just want to have fun. They just want to do fun stuff with their kids and with their friends. They accidentally learn leadership skills and citizenship along the way, right? So not a surprise that that's number one on the list. It's always interesting to see that.
Exactly.
Before we move on, I just want to real quick shout out to Gary, District Commissioner and Scoutmaster from Orange County Council. Thank you for tuning in, Gary. Appreciate that. Aaron asked a question. It's a little bit unrelated to our topic, Pat, but since I know the answer, I want to go ahead and shout out really. Aaron has a question about kids with disabilities. Aaron, I want you to Google, and this is ERINN, by the way. I want you to Google special needs and disabilities serving scouts with disabilities. There's something called the Inclusion Toolbox that will make life easier for unit leaders and adults who are attempting to serve kids with special needs. That information is there for you. I think we've done shows on that in the past. Feel free to look through our archives. Angelique. Actually, Angelique just posted the link. Thank you, Angelique. Good job. She posted. That's exactly the link that I was looking for. Thank you for watching, Angelique. Appreciate that. Pat, let's continue on our discussion. We have a few more topics to hit on the Voice of the Scout, I think.
Okay, so we'll go on. So we also ask unit satisfaction. And here's the unit satisfaction score. So this is very satisfied or satisfied. 75% of Cub Scout parents are satisfied with their unit. Scouts BSA, 79% of the parents. 75% of Scouts BSA Youth 14 plus are satisfied with their unit. That went down actually from 2023 to 2024. We're seeing it go back up this year, so we're hoping it stays up. And then unit volunteers, 79% are satisfied or very satisfied with their unit. This is with the unit. So you can see the breakdown also between the type of volunteer there. Go on to the next slide. Here's what drives unit satisfaction. It's actually different than what drives recommendation. So that's an interesting thing to me too, because I'm super geek out on this kind of stuff. So you can see the Scouts BSA Youth, they have 8 drivers of unit satisfaction. So you can see having support from those leaders. In all of these, the leader is you as a leader, or the leaders are the most important thing in that child's experience. So keep that in mind. Our family feels like we belong in our scouting unit. We have great outdoor activities. Outdoor activities are in the top 3 when you start looking at them across the board. So having those outdoor activities, scout meetings are a good use of my time. People in my troop are friendly. Being in scouting makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself. We see comes into this. Feeling safe in their scouting unit. It's really fun, comes in, and then feeling safe in their scouting unit is also. So that's about following the safety rules and making sure that that they feel safe and that their parents feel they're safe. You can see the same thing over in the Scouts BSA parents, what they're looking for there. Number 1 for the parents is those outdoor activities. And number 1 for that unit volunteer are having those great outdoor activities. Make them satisfied with their unit. 2 for those parents are support from those leaders. Again, leaders are very important in this experience for the parents too. Meetings being a good use of their time. So I'll let you go down the list and look at it, but you can see what those 8 drivers are. Some of those same things. Again, we see scouting is great value for the money comes into the parent drivers of unit satisfaction, because we also have some of the costs that happen in the unit itself too. A lot of times that's what they're talking about here. And can they see that they're getting good value for the money from what they're paying for that unit experience as well?
As we go through the slides here, just want to remind everybody, once Pat and I are done, this video will stay here. So you could always go back and look, screen capture, pause as needed. And if you'd like to continue to comment, we do read those. Sounds good, Pat. Let's talk about our next slide, which is an interesting topic. Maybe you might want to, first instinct is to bury your head in the sand, but we can't do that. Reason scouts and families leave, right?
Yeah. Reason scouts and families leave. We look at this also. So in Scouts BSA, you have a lot that earn their eagle or age out of the program. 48% of the scouts that come into the survey and said they're no longer in scouting, that's what they give in Scouts BSA Youth. Only 4% of the Scouts BSA parents that enter our survey say that is a reason. Too busy with other activities is the next highest given by the youth themselves. Poor leadership is the 3rd. So they had a disagreement with their leadership or they have poor leadership. And how they define that is a lot of the kids say we are always planning on doing things but never do anything, or our leaders are not friendly and don't treat the scouts friendly is the other larger complaint or the other reasoning they see. So poor leadership, disorganized units is what we see there. You can see that that is 33% for the adults, for the scout parents. Their number 2 reason given, or the number 1 reason given, is their child is no longer interested in their program. The number 2 reason given by the parents is they're having unit leadership problems. So being aware of that again, I go back to leadership is the most important thing in our scouting program. We have fabulous leaders, but we need to know that, sometimes I may not be the best leader, or I may need to start looking at our program and our program planning. I may need to look for more help because maybe that's the problem is I don't have enough help to be able to continuously do this. So we know there's a lot of variety of reasons, but these are some of the things that I just think we need to be cognizant of. And some of the things that we at the national office are looking at, how do we help support the leaders? That's one of the things I've been shouting from the rooftops about our support that we need to give leaders to help them deliver their program, and that we need to be cognizant of that too.
Excellent. And as a reminder, that data that Pat just discussed came from a program called Voice of the Scout. Real quick, Pat, I think that goes out to 4 times a year. Can you just go over that real quick?
Yeah, so it goes out 4 times a year. I'm about to launch the next one the first week of December. It's the first Tuesday of the quarter is where, or in this case, December is our last quarter. So but it goes out then, and it goes to 1/4 of the people who have an email address in my.scouting, a valid email address. If you've never received it before and you say, I have a good email address, sometimes it'll go to your spam. So you can look in your spam folder. It will say Voice of the Scout on it. It says that it comes from Scouting America. So you should be able to see that. And it's legitimate. I also get a lot of emails back saying, is this legitimate? It is legitimate. It will have my name on it too. The invitation letter will come from me at the bottom that I sign it as a research director.
So if you don't get one in December, it might not be your turn because it only goes out to 25% of the emails per quarter.
Per quarter.
And then also double check your email address at myscouting.org. Make sure we have the right information if you'd like to participate in Voice of the Scout. We'd love the more people to participate, the better, right?
Right. And we do read what you say.
And yes, contrary to what some people might say, Pat reads all of them. God bless her. Pat, let's move on. What you mentioned earlier, sure. Program-specific research. Tell us about that and what does that mean?
Right. So program-specific research is a custom project that the program group, somebody in Scouts BSA committee or the Scouts BSA professional comes and says, hey, we need more information on this. And so then I go out and I do a specific survey related to that. We've done some before on Scoutmaster pain points that went just to Scoutmasters to find out what their biggest pain points were. So that committee, because we do have volunteer committees behind every program in this organization. And so you have volunteers working on what they think needs to happen to help out in the field, to help Scoutmasters. So we have other Scoutmasters working on this, but we want to hear from a wide variety, not just what we at the national office think. So we go out and we survey you to find out if this, because I hear all kinds of things and I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a problem or not. Well, then we go out and we survey and we find out, oh, that is a big problem, or no, that's not really a problem. And we base what we do on what we hear from you. So one of the ones that we just finished with, I think I have a slide on this, is the 5-year review of girls in scouting. But like I said, I didn't really only want to include girls. I wanted to see if boys were having some of these same issues or some of the same break time. We looked at troop operations, we looked at uniforms, we looked at dress code, we looked at youth protection, and we looked at the scouting culture. So we had questions on all these things. It went out to every female, and then it went out to a random selection of males, because we have more males in there. So we did that. Got 2,876 responses back, which is a 14.7% response rate, which is really good in today's world to get that many, especially among youth, because youth tend to, have other things that they do and they really don't want to answer a survey. So, and this was a pretty long survey, longer than I normally like to do. My Voice of the Scout, I try to keep short and simple. This one had, with all of these different things, we had a lot to ask them. So here's what we found. I guess I should also tell you, we don't always share these results out publicly, so you won't find these results on a website because these are for those committee to use, but we do share them in things like this, but I'm not going to have it just out on a website generally. So here's our wins. Satisfaction with the Scouts BSA experience, 87.5% for the girls troops, 85.5% for the boys troops. So high satisfaction with their scouting experience. The sense of belonging within their troop is really high also. And they're feeling that they can be their authentic self in scouting and with their troop, very high. These are all really good things. These are things that will keep the kids in scouting. They'll keep the youth on that trail to get those values and to achieve. Okay, next slide. Safety. We asked them about safety. Do they feel safe at troop events? Look how high they feel safe in their troop. They know their troop, they know their leaders, they feel safe in these. Safety at district and council events, though, is different. It's still pretty high, 89.1% for boy troops, but 83.2% for girl troops. So it's a little bit lower, statistically lower for girls than it is for the boy troops. We'll talk about some reasons why, because we asked them some reasons why as we go through this. Okay. We asked them this is one of the reasons that girls don't feel safe in scouting. They tend to be the target of rude or unscout-like behavior. Overall, 31% of youth experience this, but look how many in boys troop said that they experience this versus girl troop. So what is rude or unscout-like behavior? This is being told that you don't belong in scouting. This is being called names. This is being, just rude behavior that goes against the Scout Oath and law. I don't know if I have the next slide. Let's look and see if I included this slide in or not. Sorry, I can't remember. Nope. So go back one for a minute. I'm going to continue to talk about this. So we did ask them who was doing this. Who was who was the group that was doing this unscout-like behavior? Many of them were scouts themselves, so they were fellow scouts. So boys being rude to the girls, saying rude, unscout-like things to the girls. But what shocked me is many of them are adults within our program, scoutmasters, assistant scoutmasters, parents, telling the girls that they don't belong in scouting, being rude to them at events, generally outside of their units at the larger events. To me, you are not living the Scout Oath and law if you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stand on my soapbox for a minute and say, if you're an adult leader and you partake in that kind of behavior, I don't understand it, because these are 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls that you feel a need to say those kinds of things to. I don't understand that if you're living the Scout Oath and law. So I'm just going to say that. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because that hurts my heart to know that people are doing that to other people, because it goes so against our Scout law. And I see through the research that people do live the Scout Oath and law. And if you see it happening, I hope that you're an upstander, not a bystander, and that you talk to the person that just did that, because that's a learning moment, especially for youth. That's a learning moment to tell them. I used to have a colleague that would yell out whenever I did something that was against the Scout law. He'd yell out 7. And I'd be like, well, if you know the Scout law, what point is that? He would yell out the point of the Scout law that I had just disobeyed. Obedience is my hard one. I'll be honest with you. So 7, obedience. But this is 4, 5, and 6 is what I would yell out for this one. You are breaking
a whole slew of them, I would say. Yeah, right. 3
big ones you're breaking right there with this rude behavior. So that's why, if you're an adult leader, please don't partake in this to the youth. You can have your own feelings about it. Everybody's allowed to do that, but you don't need to be rude to other people.
I think that's an important distinction, Pat. Yeah, you're allowed to feel however you feel. Come to us if you have a problem, right? Don't go to the young women who are joining, who just want to become better citizens,
right?
And all that stuff like that. They just want to go hiking and build campfires and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on.
Okay,
Pat,
sorry.
We have one more slide. Yeah, no worries.
Next slide. So we also asked them about their troop preferences here. So in the girls' troops, 58.3% preferred a combined troop option. In the boys' troop, 40.1% like the combined troop option. That's where we're going into this pilot that's going on right now, because we saw that the youth were looking for this and wanted this. And so, but we wanted to do it as a pilot, and we don't want to have everything, because everybody go into this and have this troop structure, because as you can see, there's still a big preference for single gender in this. 42% of the girls said they wanted single gender. 60% of the boys said they wanted to stay in a single gender troop. So it should be up to the troop, and that's the way the pilot is set up. It's up to the troop to decide which one they want. So if they have families and youth that are looking for that type of a troop structure, we're piloting it. They can try it out. If they're not, if they're looking for a single gender experience, stay single gender. Give the experience that is right for your troop.
Yeah, we can't repeat that enough to say that if you prefer to be a single gender troop, you are still allowed to do that. A quick question from Tiffany regarding the 5-year review of Girls and Scouts BSA study. Pat, I don't think it went out to every single girl, right?
No. So if we had an email address for them, it did. Again, we had some problems with not having email addresses, or with them getting stuck in their spam folder. So not every girl may have realized that they got it.
Yeah.
It may have passed them by. We tried to put this out on social media and all other places that we could put it out so that you would know it was there. Go look in your spam folder if you didn't find it. But it was sent to every girl for which we had a valid email address. I also get a lot of bounces with youth email addresses.
Sure.
And then for anybody 11 to 13 years old, I'm not allowed by law to send it directly to the youth. I have to have parental permission for them to take a survey. So it goes to the parent and asks them to have their child take the survey. So I do follow all laws applicable to surveying youth. We also follow all youth. This is my other question I get all the time. This goes against youth protection.
Youth protection, right?
No, it does not. I am not the only one that can see a send, and I am not the only one that can see a reply. So I have to have at least 2 registered adults. I am a registered youth protection trained adult. So is my other researcher. And I usually have somebody from the program group on there as well. So we follow. So none of us are having private conversations with any youth or anybody for that matter. If I do get a reply back on anything and it looks like a youth, or I know it's a youth, I do not reply back without adding in adults onto that reply back. So I follow all youth protection guidelines as well.
Jason says he has to dig his Voice of the Scout email out of his spam folder. Jason, appreciate that. I know that's unfortunate. I think maybe you can add it as a safe list, right? Or whitelist it. So you'll get that from now on. Sorry about that, Jason. I know that's just, that's the nature of email these days, right?
And it's the nature of who your provider is too. Some providers have a lower tolerance for how many are sent per hour than others. And they automatically put us in, even if we try to whitelist it, because we've tried that again and again. And for some reason, there's some providers that there's no amount of whitelisting we can do to get them to send it through.
Right.
They're keeping you really safe, though.
Yeah, they are. Jason, thanks for doing that, though. We appreciate it. Yeah. Catherine says their Scoutmaster made challenge coins for points 4, 5, and 6 for each scout to carry for the Scout Law. Good job there. That's very cool. Pat, we have one more topic to discuss today, and that is the type of research that you guys do. We're calling this new program and activity research. Is that right?
Right. So all I want to tell you is that before we start any pilot, we always have measurements of success. And like I said before, if they reach the measurements of success, then we say, good, this is great. We should roll it out. If it doesn't, then we say we need to kill this and not do this. So here's our measurements of success on our combined troop pilot. Youth retention. And what I'm looking for there is leaving scouting, not just the unit. Okay, because we are seeing some that are in a unit and they don't want to be in a combined unit. Girls and boys, tell you both. And so we are seeing them move to another unit. Since there are choices, they're moving to another unit that has the experience that they need. So I'm looking for, and that's perfectly all right. That's great. So I'm not going to say it didn't work because these people wanted this other experience. So I'm only counting or looking at those people within this to say it doesn't work for youth retention if they totally leave scouting because of this. We're also looking at youth recruitment. Does this bring in more youth into this unit? So I'm looking at that NPS score the youth are giving within those units that are doing the pilot compared to the units that aren't in the pilot as well. I want them at least as high as our non-pilot ones or higher. I'm looking at that satisfaction score that I told you about before. And we're also doing surveys monthly with the people in these pilots, with youth, parents, and volunteers to find out what their experience is. What are some of the challenges that they're experiencing? What are some of the good things that they're experiencing? What do we need to do if we decide to roll this out to help facilitate this being a good experience outside of a pilot? So those are the things we're looking at and that we're surveying right now. So we're tracking this. It's not a done deal. You know, people always go, you're doing it, so it's automatically. It really is not. We are going to take these results back. The committee will take these results back to their larger committee. They'll decide whether they're going to take this up to the board here at the national level or whether it's going to stay something or whether they're going to move forward or not move forward with it. And then that's a board level decision. But I know that, I'm collecting as much data as I can for them so that they'll have the ability to use data to make this decision, not just their own personal opinion, but the data from across the board.
Yeah, we say that all the time in our shows, Pat, that we're not making decisions just based on what we like and what we like to do, whether we were former volunteers or not. We're making decisions based on data gathered from the community. Pat, this has been a great show. We got a few questions real quick I want to go over with you, if that's okay. One kind of broad question, I think, is about surveying non-members. Do you have any way to reach out to people who are not currently members of Scouting America to find out, why not maybe?
Yeah. So some of the other research I do that I didn't include on this, but I just finished focus groups across the country. I'm sitting here going, I did 24 different focus groups across the country with parents of non-Scouts and non-Scouts themselves, if they were in Scouts BSA age range. And what we did there was we tested a lot of different things to find out what they liked, what they didn't like, what their perception of us was, why they weren't joining, had they considered us at all. And one of the shocking things to us, and I also checked, we just changed names to Scouting America. That was one of the things that came out of these focus groups actually, was additional girls would not be joining because it said boy. Why am I? And parents didn't even think about getting their child in because it said boy. Why would I even think about getting my girl in it? If you're not a legacy and you don't know much about it, you didn't know what they did. We're also finding what we found. They aren't seeing us. They're not hearing recruitment messages. They're not seeing us. They don't know that we're alive and well and out there. They're not seeing us in our community because a lot of times we don't wear our Scout shirts. We don't even wear Scout t-shirts when we're out doing our service projects. So they don't see us doing things. So many of the parents didn't even have us. They weren't choosing not to join us. We weren't even in their decision set. So that was one of the things that we thought was really interesting in this. So we've done a lot more. You've been seeing a lot more marketing come out during this recruitment season for Cub Scouts. You see that we now have a national spokesperson, David Montgomery, who came up through scouting and is an Eagle Scout, and on the Detroit Lions, who seem to be winning right now. So yay. You may see us during the Super Bowl if they keep winning. So we're all Detroit Lions fans, even though I live here in Dallas. Yeah, but
well, the local
Cowboys.
team here, there's not a whole lot good happening with them. So now's a good time to be a Lions fan.
Anyway, but you're going to see a lot more of us trying to get out there and do national advertising, doing national spotlights on what our program does for youth, because that's what we were hearing from these parents is they didn't see any of that. We encourage you to do that locally. We know most of the parents there told us they made their decisions based on word of mouth. So it's a friend telling a friend. So get your parents, you as a leader, talk about scouting with people. Tell them what it does for your child. Give your testimonial and see if they'll come in and join your troop. So that's the other thing that we learned is they get their recommendations that way. A few Googled to find stuff that was outside of the realm of what they knew, but most then still went to other parents and said, what do you think about this? That's why our Net Promoter Score is important. So those are the people that are going to say, yes, you should get your child involved in this.
Yeah, it's very interesting that a lot of the folks who are not members because they just aren't aware. They just don't know that we're in their communities, right?
So I have this other thing that says, how can make scouting affordable if fees and requirements that keep going up? Here's the interesting thing we found. Most of these parents are paying $350 to $400 a year for their child to be in activities. And that was across the board, no matter where you lived. I went across the country. So I didn't do any of them here in Dallas. I went to each coast. I went to Mid-America. I went all these different places. And what we found out was parents today are paying. I was shocked by how much they pay for their child's activities, even soccer, even community centers, $150 now at a community center. So I was shocked by that because it's been a while since I had children that were in all those things. And I didn't pay that much, I didn't feel like. So I think we're actually in most places in line. I'm going to say in most places, in line with what they're paying for other activities for a full year. We're way below some of the things that they're paying for. Taekwondo, I did not realize how much that cost. And some of the other things that they do with their kids. So even though we think it's expensive because we've been seeing it go up, I don't want to tell you how much it used to cost back whenever I was a den leader. It's in line with today's world prices. And so that was an interesting thing to me. And we have done some other research because I do surveys out there with non-Scout parents also. We go outside of ourselves to look at things. And we're again finding that it's within the realm of the prices that parents are paying today for these activities. So I'll just say that I was shocked by it too. Totally taken aback because I thought it was going to come out much differently, and it did not.
Very, very good, Pat. Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. We know you're busy doing collecting data and doing other surveys. So thanks so much for joining. Thanks to all of you who watched from home. As a reminder, like I said, once we're done here, you can go back and watch this video at any time. We'll be back with another episode of Troop Talk Live next month. In the meantime, thanks again, Pat. Thanks to all those of you watching from home, and we will see you next time. See you, Pat.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.